off parties, they're not freak off parties. There's a lot that happens. There's life-size wheels that people attach children to and spin it and decide who's having sex in what way. There are so many things. There's body cakes. There's party favors.
I thought my days of exploring the shadows were over. After years as a private investigator, tired of chasing whispers and exposing betrayals, I had finally retired. I had decided to run away from it all. Deception, paranoia, danger. I took refuge in a secluded cabin far from everything, hoping to find at least some peace. But peace doesn't pay the bills. The weight of unpaid notices, overdue bills, was suffocating me like a noose tightening around my neck. I was on the verge of collapsing. Then it came. The offer. And it wasn't like all the others. No explanations, no negotiations. Just a vague promise of a surveillance job. But there was something that gave me chills. Something I couldn't ignore. Classified cargo. A term I'd never heard before, but it struck me like a lightning bolt. And the payment? A life-changing amount. Not just for me, but for anyone brave enough to accept. They say there are choices in life you can't ignore. And when that sum appeared in front of me, I knew that, no matter how much I wanted to stay away from everything, this time, I had no choice. For that amount, you can't say no. But I wonder now, at what cost? What was I really accepting? Detroit, the place where it all began. A heavy air full of silent threats surrounded me as soon as I entered the room. Men in black standing still, silent. Their faces were impenetrable masks, but each one's gaze seemed to tell a story of fear and respect. There was no time for doubt, I just had to obey. And then, he entered. The masked man. His presence swept away any trace of normalcy. An evident shift in the air, as if time had stopped. A chilling silence fell. Every man stood up, but it wasn't a greeting. It was a sign of respect, as if they were standing before an authority figure, a boss, a man who didn't need to speak to impose his dominance. His mask, without distinctive features, without humanity, was part of a larger game, a power play that no one could challenge. Every word he uttered was a command that took your breath away. His cold, authoritative voice broke the silence like a sharp blow. There are trucks to deliver. Observe the cargo, follow the trucks, and ensure they reach their destinations without issue. Do not approach the containers. Do not ask what's inside, and under no circumstances dare open them. There was no room for curiosity, no margin for suspicion. Only absolute discretion was acceptable. No questions, no mistakes. His tone was firm, with no room for responses. It was clear. Anyone who dared to transgress would pay a price no one would be willing to face. The day I had been waiting for arrived, but not as I expected. I was given a truck, and with it a GPS device. The instructions, clear but unsettling. Do not stop for anything. Do not ask, do not doubt. As if there was something I should fear. The journey started smoothly, but a strange feeling grew inside me. Kilometer after kilometer, the empty road stretched out before me. The cargo, a mystery I should never unravel. But the memory of the masked man, with his warning that echoed like a sentence, wouldn't give me peace. Night fell heavily, and with it began the real terror. The GPS guided me along forgotten roads, desolate and eerie. And then, the lights. A car was following me, too close, too silent. I tried to convince myself it was just another truck driver, but the truth was, something wasn't right. That feeling of being watched, as if someone was following me, had become unbearable. Then, the whispers. Hard to explain, but impossible to ignore. They spoke of me. They knew what I was carrying. They knew what I was doing. And they would never let me go. At first, the whispers were faint, like a soft hum in the back of my mind. But they didn't fade. They grew louder, sharper, until I felt like they were coming from inside me. I couldn't resist. Every step I took dragged me deeper into the forest. The whispers pulled me, dragging me into the darkness. The further I went, the stronger they became. I couldn't stop. Then I saw it. A cold, strange light cut through the trees, drawing me in. It led me to a small clearing. In the center was a black obelisk emitting a dull sound, as if it were charged with mysterious energy. I couldn't take my eyes off it. And then the whispers joined together, louder than ever, forcing me to listen to their chilling command. Remember. What was I supposed to remember? Why was I there, paralyzed by fear? There was something dangerous about this place, something I shouldn't know. And the more I tried to ignore it, the more the forest seemed to pull me in. I had to uncover it. The word hit me like a shockwave. Suddenly, the memories I had tried to forget came rushing back. Flashes of the masked man, strange containers, and a sterile room where I was tied to a chair. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. But the mask, it wasn't just a disguise. It was alive, almost as if it had its own will. The man who wore it wasn't human. He was a vessel for something far beyond what I could comprehend. What was it? And why was it following me? The more I tried to think, the more everything slipped away. But there was one thing that remained. The obelisk. It tied everything together. The whispers, the containers, the masked man. It was all connected to something much darker than I could ever imagine. Just when I thought I could escape, I heard them. The whispers. They weren't just in my head. They stopped me. I wasn't alone. And that's when I realized I had never been. What were they hiding? What did they want from me? The truth was out there, but it was more terrifying than anything I had ever imagined. They emerged from the shadows, moving in perfect sync. Their masks were smooth, without features, no sign of who they really were. One stepped forward. It was him, the masked man. His voice was cold, like ice. "You shouldn't be here." He sent chills down my spine. "You've been chosen to serve, not to ask questions." I couldn't hold back. I demanded answers. "What's in the containers? What are the whispers?" His reply was as cold as his gaze. "You're not ready for the truth, but you will be." Before I could say another word, the obelisk exploded in flames. The whispers turned into chilling screams. The light became so intense I couldn't see. Then, darkness. What had I just encountered? Why were they hiding these secrets? I felt like I was standing on the edge of something dangerous. Something that, once known, would never let me go. I woke up in my cabin, the morning sun filtering through the windows, almost trying to deceive me. For a moment I hoped it was all a nightmare, but it wasn't. The device was still there, on the table, along with a pile of money. And it wasn't a dream, it was all damn real. My notebook, which was my only link to the truth, was empty. No more notes, no more clues. Every detail I had meticulously written down, every piece of secret information, was gone. The whispers, which had been echoing in my mind for days, had now vanished, erased. An eerie silence, a silence that was terrifying, surrounded me. It was more unsettling than any sound. And as I looked at that empty room, that deadly calm, I understood the truth. They had erased everything, but why? Who had the power to do this? And most importantly, what did they want from me? Despite everything, I felt it wasn't over. They had spared me, but I didn't know why. Maybe they wanted me to be a warning for others, or maybe they knew I could never resist the truth. The whispers had stopped, but the message was clear, like a blow to the heart. Remember. And as that message consumed me, I realized the truth wasn't just something to uncover. It was an imminent danger, ready to change everything I knew. I don't trust anything anymore. Neither the shadows that fill my mind nor the faces I meet. The truth I discovered is scarier than any nightmare, and yet I can't ignore it. Every time I try to escape, something pulls me back, like an invisible hand holding me in place. That day, the masked man showed up again, but he wasn't like before. There were no words anymore, just a figure watching me from afar. His gaze was full of unspoken threats, of truths no one should know. Maybe he thought I had forgotten everything, but I was just more curious, more obsessed with the truth that was destroying me. His cold, empty eyes stared at me, as if trying to make me give in. But I wouldn't give in. Not yet. Still, every step I took brought me closer to an abyss. I could no longer tell reality from madness. The whispers, though quieter, had become part of me. I had to be careful. Every decision, every move could be my end. But I had no choice. I had to know. I had to remember. I had to. The streets were empty, but every corner seemed to hide something. My mind was confused, but the path I was following seemed already decided. The streetlights flickered as if they feared revealing something that shouldn't be seen. Then, suddenly, the mask reappeared. A man in black, still faceless, materialized before me. "You thought you could escape?" His voice was like a knife cutting through the silence. "We don't let anyone leave once they've seen too much." His hand stretched out and handed me a folder. Inside, there were images, documents, but mostly photos of me. Smiles I didn't remember making. Moments from my life that seemed fake, altered. And then a name that froze my blood. The Observer. What did it mean? They had been watching me all along since I had accepted that cursed offer. I felt like a rat in a trap. But curiosity was stronger than fear, so I opened the folder. The face of the masked man was there, unchanged, but something in his eyes. There wasn't just danger, there was hatred. Things were speeding up. The questions I had ignored were now pounding in my mind, and now there was no escape. Every step brought me closer to the truth I didn't want to face, but that was consuming me. The city lights seemed to blur as I drove, my thoughts mixed with the confusion. Then in the darkness of the night, the sound I had feared for so long. A noise like a whisper. This time, however, it wasn't coming from my mind. "We've been waiting for you." The voice I heard paralyzed me. It wasn't the masked man, but someone darker, an entity hidden behind that facade. The darkness around me thickened, as if reality itself was bending in on itself. And in that moment, I understood. I had never been free. I had never had a chance. Everything had been planned to bring me here, to make me remember. I turned quickly, but there was nothing around me anymore. No road, no way out. Just emptiness, the end of the game. An idea struck me, terrifying yet liberating. I had always thought the truth was the key to escape. But now I knew the truth had never been something to discover, but something to fear. Every answer only brought me closer to perdition. Every time I thought I had figured it out, the truth slipped through my fingers like sand. It was impossible to grasp the full reality, because there were too many missing pieces. I wondered if I would ever truly understand what was happening, or if the only way out was to simply give in to the madness of not knowing. My mind kept repeating that I had no way out. Everything I had seen was not a coincidence. Every encounter, every choice I had made, had been leading me to a destiny I had tried to ignore. But now, there was no escape. The burden, the information, the masked man, everything was connected to something incomprehensible. Time no longer existed for me. Every day seemed the same, as if the world was spinning in circles. Every place, every person I met seemed to belong to a parallel reality I couldn't reach. My only companion was the shadow of the masked man, who seemed to follow me in every corner of my thoughts. The truth wasn't just hidden, it was swallowed, it was inside me. It was clear that the only way to get answers was to face the masked man again. I knew he would never let me leave without paying the price for my knowledge. I wasn't afraid of him anymore, because I knew by now that fear was the only weapon he had against me. I found myself again in the place where it all began. The container, the forest, the thick, heavy air. The man's mask didn't shine like it used to, but it was there, in front of me, waiting. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice broken with emotion. The answer came slowly, like a whisper that slid into my mind. "The truth has a price, and you've paid it. Now you will be part of something you can't escape." "Why me?" Why this burden? The mask tilted as if the man were smiling behind it. It's not just a burden, it's the key. The key to open what has been sealed. You are the key. At that moment, the revelation hit me like a whip. The burden wasn't just a physical delivery. It was the secret of a knowledge that would destroy everything. And I, without meaning to, had become the bearer of that key. The masked man looked at me with eyes that seemed to pierce my soul. Now that you know, there's no turning back. The truth is inside you and you can't escape it. The burden is your destiny and you can't run from it. His voice seemed to come from a deep place where there was no light, no refuge. The man disappeared like a shadow in the air, leaving me with the weight of that awareness. And so, my life vanished, becoming just a memory of what I had just discovered. I was no longer free, I was no longer alive, and yet somehow I was more aware than I had ever imagined. The burden I had carried wasn't an object, but an entity that had taken residence inside me. I could never be free of it. I could never escape the fate that had been imposed on me. But maybe in some dark corner of my spirit, that's where I had always belonged. The end had never been a true end. It was just a beginning, and so, I found myself living in the shadow of that revelation, with no more certainties, no more future. There was no way to go back, but perhaps I wouldn't want to even if I could. My life had changed in ways I could never have imagined, but in a sense, maybe I had finally found my place in this world I couldn't understand. The burden was inside me, and the truth I had sought was no longer something I could ignore. In the end, I realized I had never been just a spectator. I had been part of everything, and as the world closed in around me, I understood there was no end, only an endless cycle, an eternal return.